Welcome to ITWeb TV's review of 2023. Over the next few minutes, our excellent team of journalists and editors will bring you their favourite stories from the international and local tech scenes. I'll leave it up to them to give you the stories that matter. But for me, there's been a few. To start the year, there were hundreds of thousands of jobs being cut by the big tech players, many who overhired during the pandemic. And then, of course, there continues to be the car crash that is Twitter, now X, since it's been taken over by Elon Musk. There's been the rise of generative AI, and locally we've had the worst year yet for load shedding. And worse still, there's apparently no end in sight. And then ITWeb Brainstorm CIO survey showed that increasingly CIOs are saying their IT budgets are being frozen or decreasing. That's not happy news for the local channel. And what can we expect for next year? So I'd hazard a guess that there'll be more regulation and focus on the big tech players, especially around their antitrust and monopolistic behaviours. Generative AI, I think, is just going to keep growing, and I've seen predictions that quantum computing will start playing a more important role in that. But I wouldn't place any chips on true quantum computing anytime soon. But beyond all that, my highlight for 2023 was the launch of ITWeb TV, our longer-form video interviews, which we produce every week. Since launch, we've uploaded 30 videos with different industry and thought leaders, and next year we're planning even more with exciting new formats. So please help us keep the channel growing, subscribe, and keep our videos on top of your feed. But now, it's on with the show.
"2023 started on a sad note for the global ICT industry. This is after global giants like Google, IBM, Meta, Microsoft all announced massive job cuts during the beginning of the year. The trend continued as the year progressed, with some of these organizations even implementing second rounds of retrenchments. Spotify became the latest technology company to shed the number of its employees after it retrenched about 1,500 of its workforce. Then, moving on to the local front, the South African ICT industry this year mourned the passing of two industry stalwarts, Hamilton Rachofola, who was the CEO of Gijima, and Professor Barry Dwalonski, who was a renowned software engineer. May their souls rest in peace.
So a local story that caught my attention actually came out this week, and that is the resignation of the State Information Technology Agency's CEO, Dr. Bongani Mabaso. It came as a surprise because he joined the entity, SETA that is, in April, and 8 months down the line, he's now leaving that role. According to SETA, the CEO, now former CEO, cited wanting to, pursue personal growth and other avenues. That's the reason that's been given for his resignation. Mabaso joined SETA in a very critical time, in the sense that it hadn't had a permanent CEO since the exit of Dr. Situmo Mohapi, which was in 2019. And during that time, after Mohapi left, there was a lot of acting CEOs. There was a time when it was under executorship. And then Mabaso joined this year with the hopes that he would bring some stability and restore governance at the state IT procurement arm. On a global front, the story that caught my attention but also has some local flavor is the announcement or the confirmation that Amazon is actually launching in South Africa next year. This is by far the worst kept secret in the tech industry, because we'd always been hearing that Amazon's coming, but with no confirmation. But the e-commerce giant confirmed this year, just maybe like a few months ago, that it will launch in South Africa in 2024. At the time when it made its announcement, it said that it had already started to onboard independent sellers onto its platform. So these are probably the small businesses that will be able to advertise or sell their products on Amazon. So when Amazon arrives, obviously it will take on our local e-commerce player, that's Takealot, which also features Mr. D and Superbalist. Amazon's arrival also comes at a time when we're seeing an uptick in terms of online commerce in South Africa. It's not as developed or advanced as it is in the States or in other parts of Europe. but there's a thriving appetite for online commerce in the country.
My big local story for 2023 is the tragic death of 28-year-old Houston Ngunu, who was a Bolt driver and a University of Johannesburg law graduate. So, in April this year, ITWeb spoke to his traumatized family about this incident, and they related how he was brutally shot 4 times before being hijacked and abducted by criminals who were masquerading as Bolt customers. Now, according to the E-Hailing Partners Council, an estimated 30 drivers die in South Africa in the e-hailing industry in their line of duty every month. Drivers have been up in arms, holding protests, holding marches and walks, urging government e-hailing companies as well as law enforcement agencies to do something, introduce initiatives to make a safer working environment for them in South Africa's e-hailing industry. My big global story for 2023 is the generative AI boom sweeping through the globe this year. So 2023 has seen many companies hopping onto the generative AI bandwagon, with leaders in this field being your AWS, Apple, Google, Facebook, Anthropic, and many others, not only leveraging generative AI capabilities, but also offering it as part of their artificial intelligence as a service offerings to clients. So 2024 is expected to see many more companies using generative AI models to create new forms of creative content, using it to boost their customer service processes and support, create agile products and solutions in a cost-effective and agile manner, and speeding up time to market.
Here with 2 stories that made me sit up and take notice this year. The first is the very strange story of the firing, rather, and then swiftly rehiring of the OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. So this is the company behind ChatGPT. OpenAI is probably worth around $80 billion. As we all know, this has been the year of AI, led by ChatGPT. And so on November 30, the board fired him, saying that he had been less than candid, basically lying to them. So then he was then 2 days later, he was hired by Microsoft, who has put a lot of money into the company. And then by Wednesday, the 20th, he was back as the CEO of OpenAI. We don't know why he was fired. There's apparently going to be a investigation into that, but one theory was that they'd kind of discovered some kind of they said the board fired him because he had wanted to take the guardrails off the development of artificial general intelligence. I don't think that's true, but who knows? And probably we will see in 2024 what the reason behind this strange event was. My second story is the entrance into the South African market of the Chinese hyperscaler Alibaba. So they're doing it with BCX as their partner, and they join. Some would say somewhat late, but I suppose better late than never. They join AWS, Azure, Oracle, IBM, and at some point Google's cloud is also going to be opening a data center here. So they're going to have 2 data centers in South Africa, and probably the most significant aspect of their entrance is that their offerings are going to be priced in rands. This is often given the reason that if you need hyperscale services, you have to pay in dollars for local companies. That is often mentioned as one of the big things that companies don't like. but they will. They are no doubt going to pick up a lot of business with their partner BCX, and they're also going to be opening in Mozambique, which I suppose has been starved of hyperscalers in that country. They have to, banks and financial institutions in Mozambique have to now operate from South Africa, which their regulators don't like. So Alibaba is here.
So I'm here with my two favorite stories of 2023, starting with an international story that I wrote about Blue Sky. The social media platform enticed 65,000 users before it was even launched to the public. Currently, Blue Sky is still not available to everyone, but invite codes are going out. I just received my own, so I'm very excited about that. The most interesting thing about Blue Sky, or the story itself, is that Blue Sky is a decentralized social media platform, meaning that transparency is a priority for its users and the people who have created it. And of course, we know that Blue Sky belongs to the mind that brought us Twitter, former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. So I really enjoyed that one. When it comes to my local story, I had the privilege of going to Redham House in Waterfall, where I was introduced to a new concept in learning and in education in South Africa, which I really think we need in every single classroom. At Redham House in Waterfall and Helderfontein, they've introduced the metaverse into their classrooms, and as well as virtual reality glasses. So the children use these glasses to do dangerous science experiments that they wouldn't need to touch chemicals for. They use it to explore iconic landmarks like the pyramids of Giza, and as well as see some natural phenomenon like the inside of a volcano. I enjoyed the story because it really showcased how we can better education in South Africa.
I was fortunate in September to have been invited as part of a media delegation to the SAP Future of Business Summit. So what stood out about the story is that SAP does not really, as a rule or as a general scheme of things, open up their headquarters to the public. It was rare access that we were given to see what's happening in that at their headquarters in Waldorf in Germany. We were given a tour of the SAP Experience Center as well as the SAP Industry 4.0 Center. Now, it just shows you how much technology is being used, how much innovation is actually happening at these premises, these companies the size and caliber of SAP. It's quite phenomenal when you look at the insight that goes into their ecosystem and how much emerging technology is having an impact on almost every industry, specifically retail and manufacturing. So that was really an incredible trip. From a local point of view, I had an interview with Kate Millett she's a senior director of Commvault Africa. It was really profoundly interesting in terms of the statistics she was giving as far as cybercrime is concerned. We're home. Africa's home to the largest amount of victims of cybercrime, and according to Kate, there was 100% increase in mobile banking fraud. It just shows you how much cybercrime is having impact on industry, and ultimately what's happening is that the cyber criminals are becoming more organized, more sophisticated, and more tech savvy, and the good versus evil this sort of cat and mouse game is carrying on. Businesses and business leaders have their work cut out in 2024 to keep their businesses and resources safe.
So my global story is Elon Musk changing Twitter to X. So since we know that he acquired Twitter in October 2022, there has been a lot of change that he has made, especially regarding changing the iconic logo from a bird to X, which all of us were so surprised about. But I think we also enjoyed. It was one of those changes that we were like, oh, we didn't see it coming, but it's there now. I think also changing, having the premium version of Twitter also, because we used to it as being like a free app that we use to engage with people and networking. But I think now, since it's premium version, it's a little bit more difficult. I think also for us as an IT news publication, like having him remove headlines from links, because that was the selling point for us, because we were able to attract people through that, because we had certain words that we use in our headlines. But now, since people can't even get the headline, it all comes down to your following and how you guys and your brand awareness. So I think he really did make a lot of changes this year for a lot of us. And recently, like now in November, he introduced a chatbot on X. Still waiting to see what exactly it does and how it's going to impact X as a whole. But we're looking forward to more interesting things that he has for us. So my local story that I also chose is the alarming rise of fake doctors on social media. I think because of TikTok, a lot of people are consuming it more on a daily basis, spending more time on it, and we all want to get new information. So, and using TikTok has been that search engine for a lot of us, especially young people. Knowing that it has been used for different there's different sides to it. Like there's the news side, there's like the entertainment side of it. But I think around about medical doctors giving medical advice that you know that they're not actually credited on. They don't have any certification in terms of that or verified. So it has been a big issue, and especially since now the Health Professional Council of South Africa has partnered with the police. It has been a little bit better because they've cracked down on almost 124 fake doctors. So it has been they're making progress in terms of it. But I think there's still a long way to go, especially as not everyone can afford private healthcare. And this is definitely going to be a platform for a lot of people that are going to use that do want that medical advice, but at a cheaper price. And I hope that going forward, people are more conscious about how they interact with the app itself, and understanding that not all information is credited information, and be more cautious on what you're consuming online.
Today we're just looking at some of the top stories for Africa this year that we covered, and we feel they are worth mentioning. I think the first story that comes to mind is how Kenya managed to transition its services, which is your public sector services, online. Earlier this year, they announced that they became one of the top first countries in Africa to move public sector services online. They moved about 5,000, which was something that is really unique and progressive for the African continent, as everybody is looking to digitize the economy and public sector. This was such a move that is worth noting, and we recorded it, and we picked that as one of our top stories in the cities moving Africa forward when it comes to public sector development. The second one I think that stood out was on Rwanda opening its broadband markets after about 25 years of monopoly of one company running the broadband market, the 4G broadband market that is. Now more players were allowed this year. We've seen MTN, Airtel also launching 4G for the first time in 25 years, which brings competition, as well as probably bring more people online as the country trying to digitize and keep everybody connected. This story was noteworthy because Rwanda is one of the developing nations and is one of the fast-growing countries in terms of digital solutions, as well as the way they're trying to connect their citizens. So for us, this was a worth noting story that the market has been opened for broadband connections. Now we have new players, MTN, which has been there for 20 years, and Airtel. They are now also offering 4G services, which is something that is worth applauding and worth noting. Then earlier this year also, just moving to Africa's biggest market, which is Nigeria, they registered new MVNOs, which is your mobile virtual networks, about 25 of them, which are set to change the mobile market in Africa's most populous nation. And I think this will bring down competition and bring down prices, bring more people online as they try to compete with the incumbent. So, which means more solutions will have to be developed to try and attract more customers that are not currently connected. So, this is something that we felt it is worth noting, and it's such a huge development for Africa to have such kind of number of people coming on board to try and play a role in a country of more than 200 million people. So this is really huge, and it's worth noting for something that's happened in 2023. Then still moving on the connectivity issue on Africa, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we've been facing, digital infrastructure. We saw earlier this year, Baobab, which is formerly MTN Global Connect, they penned about a $320 million deal with Africa 50 to try and build digital infrastructure, which will see about 10 countries being connected with their East Coast cable. So I think this is something that is worth noting. We'll see how that progresses. We'll be monitoring how that development is coming up and what countries are going to be connected and how soon that will be. So yes, that's one of the top 23 stories that we've picked up on the continent. And lastly, I think we're looking at gender diversity within the telco space or the digital space. This year, MTN did something that is, I think, exciting and shocking to some because they appointed 3 women CEOs to the 3 OPCOs, which is Rwanda, Cameroon, and Uganda. This happened in September, 1st of September, and this was such a huge move when it comes to gender parity and try and equalize the playing field and bring more women on board. So I think this is a story that is worth noting. And in the last year, the women have been at the helm of their operations. All the 3 OPCOs have performed very well in terms of bringing in revenue, in terms of performance, infrastructure development, and the general well-being of the communities that they operate in. So to us and to me, this is something that was worth noting when it comes to empowering women to take part in the digital space.